Good morning and happy September, everyone. This is Ask Anything, and today we have an amazing special guest host that I'm very excited about. I first met this gal back in 2014 when I was starting my journey with Ayurveda, and I've watched her develop her practice, her career. She is the total package, literally. She manages to balance unbelievable Ayurvedic wisdom with living life fully, traveling, maybe a glass of wine or two from now and then, but definitely all coming from the best body balance and wisdom, and the kind of networking and support that she gives to other women and other Ayurvedic practitioners is unparalleled. I wish I could be her when I grow up. So.
You're too kind, Andrea. Same. You rock, girl. You have so many skills that I don't. So thank you.
So yes, this is Simone Oliver. So Simone, tell us how things are going. What are you up to?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that, dear. I've been on this journey studying Ayurveda and holistic health over 20 years, thankfully. Came to the Dhyana Center, like she said, in 2014 and just completely sunk my teeth into it. I was instantly transformed by this work, just finding how practical it is, how easy it is to apply to your daily life, how the simplest, most inexpensive things can provide really big results. So I was able to apply a lot of that information in the first year of studies to myself and really come up with a good routine for my best health. It's been fantastic. Once you find out your own constitution, it's like having this new lease on life. Oh, these things are my aggravants. I'm really going to know to avoid that. KNOW. It's not a big fat, no, never touch it again. And that's the beautiful thing of Ayurveda. It's about the balance, doing the opposite. You figure out who you are and you say, these spices are really medicine for me. And these proteins ranked in order are actually going to be the ones that are most digestible for my constitution and best for me seasonally, right? We're actually looking at what time of year it is and what's happening with the weather, that internal weather report. We check in with ourselves and we're able to proceed. So I'm just so grateful. And after that first year of being able to examine my own self and coming up with a healthy kind of dinacharya, which is our daily practices, I was able to really expand that and look into my community and the people that are around and help them immeasurably with the simplest, most inexpensive suggestions. So it's completely empowering. And I'm just everybody's cheerleader. So I've been really grateful to have all these skills and all this knowledge just to continue to support the folks that I love. And now this ever-growing community of clients who become folks I love. Yeah. So
you're a treasure.
Yeah, thank you, dear heart. I've been grateful to have been able to have my own studio space in Sonoma. So even though we're in crazy COVID times, I'm still able to have my doors open. And I can't tell you how many clients have come to me and said that they haven't been touched in over a year, that the physical hand that I'm putting on them is the first physical encounter that they've had. And that hits my heart in a different, tender way, that really what I'm able to do is so much deeper than just unwinding a knot in a certain area or helping open lymphatic flow. So that's been a really rewarding and huge piece of this practice for me. So yeah, fantastic. Grateful to be here. My girlfriend has just joined me. Tara, come on and have a seat.
Yay, Tara's another amazing person.
Hello, hi.
Hey, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you. I like your hair. I didn't recognize you on one of the videos. I was like, who's that? And she's so young.
Oh,
and,
thank you so much.
Years younger. You look like a kid.
I might go red. Shit, 15.
Dude.
Strange not correct hair color does, the super black or the, you know what I mean, the kids would
It's a
say.
standout.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
fun that we
Little
can
one.
play with that and explore.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
A
So
little bit of
Tara and
freedom.
I have worked together at the center for years, and she's continued her studies at many different Ayurvedic colleges. I'll let you talk about that if you wish to. And so I called her in today just for some support and some fun. I haven't done a lot of lives, so I admit I was maybe a little bit nervous, and we're allowed to do that when we need help. We call for support, right? Like that's so much of what we do with our work, and
Right.
it's okay to be vulnerable.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I prefer working collaboratively anyway. I think there's just more people involved in, it helps. It helps. I'm Tara. I'm a Ayurvedic health counselor. I got my AHC. I did my clinical work at the Dhyana Center in Sebastopol, and it was a very great, beautiful, unique program that, and I've been to the Ayurvedic Institute, and I've done Pulse with Dr. Lad, and I'm doing a lot of work at Mount Madonna, and I've done a lot of work at Kripalu. So I've seen like a lot of the Ayurveda yoga stuff that's around, and I really, I'm really grateful for the eclecticness and the variety in my education, and I love all my teachers, but I think there was something really special about Dhyana and the way she does Pulse and the way she really connects with the students and the clients. And, it was really sad for me that she had to kind of shut the whole thing down during the COVID because, that little tiny exam rooms with 4 people jammed in was not going to work at all. So that's
making some adjustments here in this day and age, having to do more stuff online.
Yeah.
It's to be available. So do you have a few questions for us, Andrea?
I do. And this is such a great, amazing twofer. Both you guys know so much. So I'm excited to hear your takes on these questions. So the first question comes from Natasha. Natasha is 41 and was diagnosed about 10 years ago with a fiber adenoma in the right breast. It's a small, and then there's a small fiber adenoma in the left breast coming off of a 10-year use of Depo, the birth control shot. So wondering what the cause of the fiber adenoma would be and what's the best way to work on it. Would the goal be to get rid of it? Natasha's hoping to breastfeed and is concerned this will impact it. She already does lymph movement with castor and it has softened the fibrous tissue. She says she's also heard that moxa can be helpful. So whatever your input might be on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I really acknowledge what you're going through, sister. And I appreciate that you're taking full control of this and looking for some support around it as you're preparing to become a new mom, and physically and emotionally. So the more you can do to get your body prepped and ready for it, I salute you. That's one lucky baby that has a mom that's coming in so prepared. So talking about the breast tissue, we know that our drains are here below. They hang off the clavicle bone here. So you want to make sure it's just like having your toilet clogged. You're not going to continue to send waste to a clog. So you want to make sure first those drains are open. And oftentimes you'll see on a friend maybe that they're raised here in this middle point, that you'll see literal protrusion coming forward from their lymphatic zone being clogged. So just starting there always. And whether you use a little tool like a gua sha, I've got a wooden one here. I've also got one that's jade. I really love these for the face and the neck. They're nice and cool. But for this instance, I'll just show maybe some basic movement of like, hey, you can hear I'm scraping my skin a little bit. I'm getting in there a little bit deeper. Move this aside and open things up. And then with the drains are this primary lymphatic channel that runs. So it's under the armpits. And you're starting to get saggy here. Well, maybe you've got a dam in the river and a lake is filling up. So just keeping that really open so that the breasts and everything can drain downwards. If you're having that specific instance with an area in the breast, it's very normal. A lot of women actually get these and they can be broken down. They can sometimes go away on their own. It's very hormonally related. So I'm not surprised that with a Depo shot, something showed up because of that major infusion of hormones all at once. And being able to soften and open that blockage is totally possible. Just like any other lymphatic lumps, they're very natural in the breasts. They're not going to cause breast cancer. Working it with castor is wonderful. It's really sticky. Dee has a breast cream. Deanna's breast cream is phenomenal. There are so many wonderful ingredients in there, and the texture of it is just really nice to work the skin and work that tissue. I've had to start carrying it in my shop because every client I use it on wants to take one home with them. So that's just been a really easy fit for breast care. It's women and men. And I find myself, I tend to do it when I watch a movie. It's just, I'm already sitting still. It's a time where I'm able to kind of maybe you're with a partner or your kids, everyone's eyes are on the TV. So they're not looking at you massaging your breast, and you're able to get some good work done. So I would just find the edges of it. You find the edges and you palpate and you work it and you work it. And maybe you don't overdo it. You're not trying to get rid of this in one day. This probably didn't form in one day. So we're just going to soften it. We're going to keep heat on it. Sours help to liquefy things. So maybe you're bringing more sours into your diet too. That you might be someone that's more prone to having some coagulation. So of course, sours in Ayurveda, easy to add to the diet, are a sumac spice. I love that sumac spice. I've been using, what are we using for sours, Tara? Hibiscus tea. I've been doing
Amalaki is a sour Ayurvedic herb, and that's really good for high pitta stuff, hot, people who are running hot. It's one of the tris in Triphala, and it's really, and I think it's got a nice sour, it brightens things up, and it's, so you can put that, you can just put that in hot water or cook it in milk, pour hot milk over it, however you can put it.
Amla is the Indian gooseberry. So it's got just like a natural sour to it.
Yeah. And so this is in the powder form. I think you can probably get it cut. You can get it fresh, or it is it's the main ingredient in Chyavanprash. So that's another, when this Amla and Chyavanprash in Ayurveda, they're called Rasayana. They're rejuvenating herbs, and they're really good for the lymphatic, which is called Rasa Dhatu Rasayana. So it's like building up that base. So anything that kind of nourishes rasa is going to, nourish your immune system, nourish your reproductive system, because rasa it's totally connected to our tava, the uterus, and menstrual fluid and stuff. So it's really important to kind of pay attention to that. But I think it's a good sour because it will melt and cool, and it tastes good, and it's good for digestion. It's really good. And that's really what we're trying to do, is get the digestion, because that lymph's got to go out. Everything's got to go out somewhere. You know what I mean? So when we move it, can't hit another dam.
Heard. You heard it here first. No,
right.
So I feel, what more might I want to say to that? I feel as though you're empowered. There's a lot of potential there, that I would just work it slowly, surely, at your pace. If you want to go for some assistance and have a secondary, massage therapy person put their hands on it, that might accelerate, and just, they might be more comfortable going deeper. A lot of times with our own selves, we can stop. We get to a little place of pain, or we do 2 or 3 minutes with the gua sha, and it's like, oh, that's enough. But actually, spending the time,
Simone,
spending the time, allowing somebody else to really work your body. Yeah.
Right. And they'll do it. And you can always say, stop, you're hurting me. And maybe Simone will stop. But if she thinks she's got a lot of adhesion, she's like,
okay,
all right, she's good. No, but she'll clear it out.
No,
but that stuff will move and break down. And that's the whole point, is to kind of soften the tissue, break it up, and move it out.
We saw a client the other day who texted me afterwards, and just 1.5 hour massage session, she said, I opened a large clog that she had in her armpit for 22 years after nursing her daughter. So things can come up with pregnancy.
Right.
Women don't know how to deal with it. She's been to umpteen doctors who haven't been able to help her. And one massage opened something that was long-standing issue for her. I mean, it's just, when Dee says we're running on grateful, to get that type of feedback, I got chills. It's so rewarding.
No, that's awesome. That's
so
really
yeah,
good.
I feel as though,
But it's also
a lot
sad
out
that
there.
she's got a lump and nobody can say, like, have you tried moving it, or did you see somebody else? Like, that there's no, like, they couldn't refer
It's
her to
often
another
hard to
doctor.
figure out really the root of our problems, and that's the beauty of being able to read the pulse.
Mhm.
And Ayurveda, we're going down 14 levels. We're looking at individual pinpoints on each finger, up to 3 to 5 positions, and being able to get so connected with a client that you can let them know your stomach is running dry, your
Mhm.
liver is really clogged. I had Deanna read my pulse the other day. Confessional, get ready. She said your gallbladder is not breaking down fats well. And I know that my journey of being vegetarian for years and coming back to eating meat and being scared as a woman living in California of any fried foods or any butter, I think for a long time I really recoiled and pushed away anything that had some fat content. And so it's created this issue in myself where now I don't break down fats well. And so that's where for me, sours have been coming up in my
Mhm.
life, and that I'm actually embracing that and trying to change a long held pattern because you can.
Did you eat olive oil when you were, or were you avoiding olive oil too when you're avoiding fat, or not? You're not.
I think I ate very little. I was living on like apples and trail mix and, being in the car all the time and
Well, I
just
mean, I
wanting
would
quick
do
and
that.
easy snacks.
Well, I would definitely do that. But if they put a
Before
plate of
Ayurveda.
pasta in front of me, I'd eat it, or I'd eat like buckets of like olive oil. I mean, bread is just the thing. And so I think like that raw oil that I used to intake really
Helped out.
protected me, in
Mm.
ways that I didn't, once I learned about Ayurveda and raw oils, and I could see like some of the big mistakes I'd been making. I also got to look at the things I was doing right. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, this is really good. Like I did eat a lot of raw, I ate a lot of vegetables, but I put it in, I packed it back later in the evening and went to bed shortly thereafter, which was, that's definitely like a no, no.
Not part of our good
Well, it
routine.
creates a tamasic thing, and it's not just bad. I think my digestion could recover, but I think it created a pall, or like a cover or shroud over my life, because I'm doing this thing that's late, I'm going to bed. It's kind of negative, you know what I mean? And I think it's having a negative impact on my relationships. And I don't think about it like this, like eating too late at night. And so we're having dinner at 8:30, and we're eating tons of food, and I can burn those calories later on or on the weekend, but it's just, I think the day to day doing that and making it a habit is not good. Just, I think in Ayurveda, it all starts in the mind, right? So like, this is like a head thing more than like a physiology thing, although it is very bad for your digestion to
Eat late at night. Yeah,
to
we
be
will.
like, well, this is my youth. I think this is this thing. Young people can get away with stuff.
Mm.
And, when you get older, you have to kind of reflect. People are always like, but I always used to blah, 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 fill in the blank. And it's like, well, yeah, that's when you had more immunity. That's before your pitta
Elasticity.
got inflamed and dried everything out. And so now you have to, we're dealing with a lot of premenopausal and menopausal women. It's the vata time of life, and they're feeling a little depleted, or they're worried about being depleted. They kind of know stuff's happening and they want to get a jump on it. So I think
Mhm.
that's the, treating vata, the dry, windy, cold.
Condition.
Yeah, like all of these things that are, prevalent in perimenopause and, menopause, all the way through. And
For
just
women and men. I
for-
mean, men are dealing with losing their hormonal strength as well in those changes, and their body getting different. The
Yeah.
muscle tone starts to fade. And so we've got to boost up. Maybe you're doing Pilates or gyrotonics or some Tai Chi or something that's actually going to build some muscle mass as we're aging, that's not going to be as stressful, and it's not getting on a treadmill and trying to do all this cardio, but you want to do maybe a vigorous walk uphill. If that's the little that you can do, that's going to be a lot better for you than letting time pass and not really dealing with the issues at hand. As we age, we kind of got to step it up if we want to keep our muscle mass and our balance.
Well, you have to keep doing things, but I think there's this, people put themselves under physical and mental stress, and they're pumping lots of cortisol, and that's where the dudes get the kind of the
Belly
extra
fat.
flab, and the women who are going into perimenopause or whatever, they're pushing hard on their adrenals. And I mean, that's another cortisol thyroid thing. And, it kind of like trips people, they cascades for people, I think. And then they're, like, do I really need to take these thyroid meds?
Right.
Later on. I don't think the guys have it that bad. Like, I mean, I think they do in terms of the cortisol and the stress and the, anything related to depression and cardio stuff, that really does impact them. And I guess that's a form of menopause or the menopause for men, but it's we don't look at that medical stress. And I think the thing about Ayurveda and yoga especially is we're looking to reduce stress either through diet or breathing. I mean, I think that's the, to put yourself into a parasympathetic state. And so sometimes I think it's very important to exercise and keep moving, but if it's going to put you into a sympathetic fight or flight,
sure,
you're doing, you know what I mean? It's
no need to
gotta,
push,
right?
No
Not to
push.
like, so you feel like you're being chased by a tiger, but so you feel like the kind of like the euphoria of like, this feels really good, but not so awesome that you're like, I want to keep doing this until you cannot. We had a client who walked, she's 10 years older than I am, and she walked 13 miles the other day. And I'm like, I wish I could walk 13 miles. And then I questioned her. I'm like, what happens when you do this? And she's pacing herself. And I mean, she's telling the people she's with, I need to stop and I need to eat. And we're kind of like, like if you read in the medieval texts, and when I kept reading this, it kind of made me go, one of the causative factors for a lot of Vata stuff is excessive walking.
Oh, wow.
And I read it a lot in different verses. And so that's a real like, oh, that explains some things that are going on. You know what I mean? And I think people don't, because walking is one of these really good exercises, but you can be out there hiking too much or
overdoing it.
Yeah.
As with anything, find the balance, right? Yeah. Vata is really prone to have that need to step away and to get a little space from others. I think they're subtle. They take on a lot of other energies. And oftentimes when we're looking to ground ourselves, we need that deep breath. And so whether they go for a walk or reach for, let's say, a cigarette or marijuana, that's that false expansion that we're taking in something else when we're really just looking to calm ourselves with breath. Dee says rest and oxygen are the most healing things. They're free.
Right. Stop moving.
So I pray for a good night's sleep for all of you. What's our next question, Levy?
Yeah, so I have a feeling it's going to have some related parts. So our next question is about an Ayurvedic approach to teen acne. We're talking about the other end of the hormonal spectrum and in the timeline of life there.
Yeah, hormonal acne. That's a big one. A lot of teens deal with it. There's so much sugar in our diet. It sneaks in a lot of different ways, whether it's a baked good, it's not about, I don't eat candy. It's like, well, how much fruit are you eating? Even fruit sugar in excess can be inflammatory. So yeah, just kind of watching, and the more sugar you eat, the more you crave.
So this is a real, I've had a lot of experience with this too. Just personally, but more in my 20s, not as a teenager, but I think it's a pitta thing. It's very hot. It's fire. And it's mostly, I would think, in everybody, there's going to be differences. This is just generalized, but it's a small intestine thing, like where something is very hot in there. So it's either putrefying or you have a very pitta aggravating diet. So like people eat a lot of tomatoes and a lot of things. And I don't want people to have to give up, but I mean, I think they need to pay attention. Like, are you having chips and salsa, and then you're having pizza, and then you might have pasta with red sauce, and these things you may be having salad, and you may be having, and they're healthy and made really well, but I think the tomato itself is really aggravating. And so just to try to, people who are like really suffering from the hard acne, it really is like a pitta pacifying diet. It's no nightshades like tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplant, and avoid hot, spicy food and fried foods and sour food and leftovers. And these are these things. And then there's the whole candy aspect, or the sweet drinks, energy drinks, like all of these things, like coffee. And so it's hard to like get a young person to totally go on the elimination diet thing. But I think, I think this is also the thing where people have to, they should experiment with it. and try. And I think there's also, you know, turmeric tea would be good because it's a bitter, it will work on the liver. Aloe vera juice, if people can, you know, with little salt, you know, and watered down, if they can tolerate it. You know, I think it's not a familiar drink to kids, and it might not taste that good, but, you know, having a half a cup in the morning and half a cup at night might cool some things down a little bit. But I don't recommend this, but I see it from an Ayurvedic perspective. When I was breaking out really bad in my 20s, a friend of mine suggested psyllium husks, and I would drink those, you know, and it's this goo, and you drink it and it turns into goo in your stomach. And it did have an effect because I'm putting out the fire. But from an Ayurveda perspective, there is a fire in my colon, and I am just putting a wet blanket on it. I'm not taking care of the fire, so it's smoldering under this wet thing. So I can kind of clear things up. But it was always, for me, it is totally related to hormones, because every time my moon time came around, I was thinking like, now my skin is clearing up finally, and I'm going to be beautiful. And I just had to, like, I think the thing people have to do before diet, you know, get all that stuff in order, but just really try to love yourself and forgive yourself for not, you know, being the person who looks like they've been photoshopped. And in my day, it was, you know, brushed and made up and whatever. Then it's not a real looking person. And so we're real people, and we are living in the world, and we're going to sweat and get a zit, and we're going to eat the wrong thing, and we're going to have a breakout, and, you know, like that kind of stuff. And we're not, you know, we're going to get a cold sore when we get anxious, and we're not going to want to go out and be seen. But it's like, we don't see that unless we're looking at the mirror. So just go forth and be yourself, and don't worry about it, because other people, they're worried about the way they look. So like, don't even,
that's really good advice at the heart of it. Because that can be such a tender thing when you're a teenager. Your peer pressure is so strong, and it's really, you know, a blessing if you're able to realize that I can let myself off the hook and, you know, not worry so much about what everybody else thinks.
I mean, I didn't have Ayurveda, so I didn't know. So it's all this kind of like backward, you know, retrospect on my thing, like what's Ayurvedically happening to me. But I think young people who have access to this is a really great tool, because there's nobody I could go to, you know what I mean? And I knew the medical model was just going to throw these awful medication at you. And I'm just kind of like that was Accutane. You'd have to have your blood drawn to check your liver. And as a young person, I'm kind of like, I didn't have to have a ton of biology in school to know, like, I don't know, clear skin is not worth the liver. You know what
failure.
I mean? Like, it's not. I'd rather put up with the stigma, and then some kind of not so helpful people like giving me suggestions unsolicited what I can do to help my face. It's just like,
that's painful.
It's painful. It's because basically what they're telling me is cover it up. They're not telling me, hey, like my girlfriend is like, why don't you try this psyllium husk thing? It might work. You know what I mean? Like, and that was very kind. Or I had an aunt who said, maybe you're drinking a lot of orange juice. And I was, but I never really.
That acidic.
It's totally that acidic. So like any like Coke, juice, candy bars.
Teenagers, those are the ones who are buying all those fun drinks.
Right.
They're not drinking water. That's so boring. I didn't come around to appreciating water till I was about 35.
Right.
And now I'm so happy with my water. I'm putting strawberry slices in. I'm putting mint slices in. It's definitely that season. We've had summer heat. So it's like all the mint I could possibly eat. I've got a beautiful mint bush outside, and chewing on little rosemary bits at times, sometimes chewing on little fennel seeds to cool on down and just improve my mouth health. And my, you know, that's also a hormone balancer. So yeah, pretty grateful for all that we've got. Does that feel like we've summed it up a little bit?
I mean, I've got teenagers myself. So
okay. So
I can definitely resonate with no, I'm not drinking that. And yes, I would like some more pizza. Hello. Yeah. And it's such a comparison time. It's a judgment time. And that's really where those habits come in of like, why don't I look like these people on TikTok and YouTube? Why don't I look like my classmates? What's wrong with me? And it's such a hard place to be, that takes us so much work to get through. And that's that fire of frustration.
Right. And that heat's rising in the body, just like a house fire. So if we're not expelling, if we're not able to speak our truth, and at that age, are you really speaking your truth? You're just trying to figure out what your truth is. Are you, doing any breath exercises as a teenager? Probably not. But we know that we want to blow that fire out, like a vigorous scalp rub. Maybe as a mother, that's something that you come in and provide. And you just remind them that, like, oh, there are these little tools. Let me do it for you. And I'm going to instill this until it becomes a habit. I'll never remember the first time I threw up in college. And I remember looking at my roommate and being like, why aren't you holding my hair back and giving me the wet washcloth like my mom does? Like, wait a minute, isn't this standard?
No, my mother would be outside the bathroom. Are you okay? She would be retching at the say she's
right.
grossed out.
So it's just sweet that as mothers and fathers, you guys are able to help instill some really healthy practices and habits and be that comfort to set them up for their future.
Right.
I mean, just a regular diet, you know what I mean? Like that would be so, or giving the kids, if the kid, because they're young enough, and I think they have the digestive strength that this would be effective. Give them the triphala. Like, I think it came, like triphala is this, I was a little bit too far gone for that to like have the immediate effect. You know what I mean? The digestive regulating effect.
Triphala is a blend of Ayurvedic herbs that's really great for digestive support, sloughing, kind of getting things on the move, a little really, really mild purgative, safe for daily use. They have it in capsule, powder form.
And it is really good. I mean, I'm just thinking of your kids, because you have access and you have, what I mean, you could strong on them, but it's but for any, like, for any of the teenagers, even just regular herbs like ginger is a good digestive, just to kind of like, get the or, stimulate the digestion in your stomach, and just so that's going and it keeps moving in the small intestine, because I think that's when stuff leaves the stomach, if it's not properly digested, then your bile from the gallbladder and everything, they don't know what the SI does this. The small intestine doesn't know what to do now. It's got a bunch of junk it's not supposed to digest. And so this is where stuff enters the lymphatic system to try to work itself out. And so this is why people feel all achy and crappy after they eat wheat, or why the kids break out, or why people have psoriasis. Something's going on in that. In Sanskrit, it's called grahani, is that part of the small intestine, like where the stomach dumps into. And it's like, that's where that's the part that kind of needs to move out. That's what the mild purgatives will do. And they're mild. So like, it's not like.
And some body work. I mean, I don't know how many times I've laid down or woken up in the morning and just kind of worked my stomach before I get up for the day. That's kind of how I wake up. I do a little bit of movement in bed, and oftentimes small intestine massage will be part of it. And I know that boosting your probiotics will be really helpful for small intestine health. I love to massage it with some good warm oils or a warm stone. If you just go to the river, you find a stone that's the darkest black and nice and smooth, and you can heat it up in a pot of water, crock pot, microwave, pretty easy, pot of boiling water. And then using that stone to massage the belly and to open it up and to move some of the gas that's building up and the discomfort. Also chewing on cardamom seeds. If you ever feel a lot of gas and bloating, those little cardamom seeds that come in the cardamom pod will instantaneously help you. It's really great to settle nausea, and it's not as intense as ginger. So I keep cardamom pods in my car. So I always have them. I have a little jar of bitters in the car. If I know I'm going out to a fancier meal, a little bit of a richer meal, I just dose myself with a little bit of the bitters tincture before I go into the restaurant. And then I feel taken care of. We're not about, no, you cannot. I'm like, hey man, I live in wine country. I'm getting dressed up. I'm fine dining. And what are we going to do about it? So that's what we do about it.
Exactly right.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next question comes from a listener who says, my cousin recently discovered that she cannot sweat. That's called anhydrosis. She used to sweat lightly when younger, but now finds that she literally can no longer sweat despite hot weather or activity. This presents a problem when she is hiking or active, especially outdoors in the heat, because she's prone to overheating despite dressing in loose, light clothing and hydrating well. Are there any natural remedies to recommend?
Yeah, that's actually come up more than once this summer. I've had another client contact me about that recently. And of course, you notice it more in the summer when you're extremely hot. And if you can't sweat, it's actually fairly dangerous. People might be so dehydrated. As Dee talks about, you want your body to have a full booming volume of hydration and blood pressure. And when we're dehydrated, the glass is half empty. You're not having the same blood pressure. You can literally feel it in the pulse. You can feel it in your energetic levels. You can feel it in your heartbeat. Oftentimes with anhidrosis, you will have an irregular heartbeat, and that could be extremely alarming, but it is something that you can work on. Sometimes it'll even go away spontaneously as it came. It's a little bit of a bizarre thing. I think they said it affects 10% of the population. I did a little research on this up late last night. Love being able to provide solutions. So
it also depends on like what are the causative factors. So we have a question, and so we don't know how old this woman is. We don't know if she's taking any medication that would stop you sweating.
Medication is one of the big contributors to this.
And I feel like I don't sweat the same way I used to now that I'm in menopause. So that's a little like I worry that I have this thing. But when I have too many blankets on and I feel better, like I do work up a sweat, and it's not a hot flash like sweat. It's like I'm moving the rasa, I'm moving the lymph. And I think that's really, so, I was just looking at the diagram and trying to figure out, like where are your lymph ducts and sort of what could the issue be from an Ayurvedic perspective and how to, deal with it. And I think, like staying hydrated, I used to, carry a bag of water on my back for years, and that was it. And I thought I was hydrated. Silly me, I was not. So, it's like I got 2 liters with me all the time. So I think like sometimes we're drinking water and we think that's enough. And it really is like, did you put salt in it? Do you have any like even all that, your little slices of strawberries, or those things will help the water.
All those
stick with you.
electrolytes.
Any kind of electrolyte, even the little flavors attached, or even like, sugar if you got, like, what I mean? Like just to have something connected to the water so it doesn't just flush you out, because it'll rinse out your minerals and you won't really have anything left if you keep drinking too much.
Yeah,
so like
people overdo it and they're peeing it right out. They're not absorbing it at all.
Right. And it's taking away. And like you don't want it to leach away whatever you have left. And so if you're having this sweating problem, it's important to be mindful. But I think because I'm just going to treat it as like an issue of the rasa dhatu, like the lymphatics. And so you want to, it's better hydration, maybe the Chyavanprash or the Amalaki or the Triphala. These are things that nourish the rasa dhatu, and help it absorb. But again, this is just for educational purposes. So I'm not offering, any.
We have a disclaimer at the beginning. Okay, don't worry.
Just making sure. Well, these are just more, I'm just riffing on an Ayurvedic idea of like, where are these glands? Your sweat glands are located in your skin, and the skin is a product of your muscle tissue, but it's also like, the passageway is very short, you know what I mean? So just like, how do those passageways that are embedded in your skin, this is the sweat glands and their ducts, what's happening to them? Are they really super dried out? And so this is, again, I think we do come back to a lot of body work stuff is, getting that warm oil and maybe kind of, moistening that up, like how dried out and depleted are this person's tissues
coming from it topically.
Right. Like kind of like in through, because this is what Deanna's all about, is moving the lymph and getting the lymph to move. And that's how you change all the other tissues all the way down.
100%.
So like, this is where, this moistening of, all the little glands where your hair's pulling out of, and all those little, our skin has got the 6 layers and they all need some nourishment. And and I think probably more internal oilation, Snehana too, like if she can
snort. Snehana is snorting the oil, the sesame oil in the nose, so you'll just,
that's nasya.
Oh, which one did you?
Snehan is
Oh,
just
just
oil
sweating.
in general.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Svedana is
Svedana,
Svedin
okay.
because it sounds like Svet. That's how I remember that. And Sneh, that just, I got to remember that means oil and unctuous or whatever. But like, but that's anywhere. So like anywhere you can get oil into yourself that's raw and healthy is good. So some people will snort it up their nose. Ears are good if you're super dry and you feel confident that you can, pour it out and get it, get it to drain properly. Just putting it in your mouth and letting it swish around there is good, and spitting it out. And then, just, I think having it, just eating it. So like that's the raw ghee and the raw oil if you like sunflower or hemp or flax or olive oil, like drinking that
salad dressings and pestos and getting it in, I'll make a soup sometimes, put a drizzle of raw oil in the top of a nice soup. I made a gazpacho this week, and that's a perfect opportunity to, put some good raw oils in a cold soup. I start off my morning. Tara made me this ghee infusion. Tell me a little bit about what you put in here for me.
So this is called Panchatikta Gritam, and it's like the 5 bitters. And I think I only got 4 out of the 5. And I'm doing, yours stayed better. It's cooking the ghee. It's cooking the herbs in ghee for like a long time, but you have to make a paste. And it's elaborate. And if it were India, there'd be 100 herbs, and I'm just kind of keeping it down to the, 4 or 5 that I work with. And I think because ghee is unctuous and oily, some of these bitters are super drying. And so, you want to take turmeric because everybody loves turmeric and they say great things about it, but it can be very dry and it's stringent. And so like having it with like in this ghee base, you get the benefit without the super dry. There are also other bitters that have that are not light and drying like turmeric. So, Guduchi has an oily quality, and Mangista has a heavy quality, and ashwagandha has a, that's I think that's Schnigna too, like our guru, like heavy, like they're dense. They also have these light and drying properties too, but they bring more of a grounding thing because of these, so there's other bitters for people who like can't do the, like if the turmeric is too dry.
Good point, because turmeric is really celebrated and maybe even overused, and that's a point that I don't hear very often. So.
I've made mistakes. I've learned it. I learned from my mistakes with turmeric. And so like that's, you can do things work when you're in your little home and you got your own dinacharya. And then I took my practice with me, to not my home, to not where I could cook it in milk, to not where and it just totally, when my left lip starts peeling off, I know I'm I can't
dry.
catch on. I've totally dried out my descending colon, because your body is, kind of lines up, and I'm, and I'm trying to catch up, and I'm drinking melted ghee, and I'm like, I don't know. I made some, but it's like, I think this is why herbs are awesome. And the culinary herbs are really great.
Yeah.
We can experiment with them. We can't really get too hurt, and we can see the effect. I mean, like, because people will take an herb and they don't know and they can't notice. And so even though I kind of felt like I overdid it, I was able to see like what the properties of this herb are. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the like,
sometimes that's the true learning, is hands-on, that we have to experience it for ourselves to really cement that knowledge. Yeah, true.
And I would encourage people to do that. You know what I mean? Like read about herbs, learn about herbs. There's a really great website, and I don't know if it's come up here, but it's called easyayurveda.com. So you could look anything up. And they're definitely, they give all their disclaimers too, but you can learn a lot about the properties of the herbs, what kinds of diseases the herbs are used to treat. You can type in your own issue, you know what I mean? And then they'll give it to you from the Ayurvedic perspective, and then talk about, what, they cite all the medieval texts too. And so they're, a lot of it's like right from those texts. So it's really good
resource.
It's a totally good resource. We use it all the time in our, coursework, because sometimes it's like, okay, I read that in a book and I can't find the herb, or like I got a big giant like this, and so it's like, oh, I'll just ask Dr. Hubbard at Easy Ayurveda, and he'll tell me what is the, what is it, the rasa Virya Vipak.
And the beautiful thing about people being able to come on and ask anything and ask Deanna these
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
I mean, we used to wait months for a pulse clinic appointment, and now this is completely available to you
Right.
bi-monthly. And please continue to send your questions. Do you have another one for us,
Yeah.
Andrea?
We do. Thank you for that plug. And I also want to remind folks that this whole session is saved on YouTube and is added into our podcast. I don't know if either of you have heard the podcast, but it's pretty groovy.
Thank you.
So yeah, our next question is about the vaccine. Folks that are looking to definitely bolster their body around before they get the vaccine and then afterwards. One of our listeners, Sarah, is asking what she can do pre and post vaccine to support her health.
Boy, have I had a lot of experience with this. You know, folks have been getting vaccinated, at least in my life, since January. My own family were dealing with a cancer struggle, so it was really important for them to make sure that they got that taken care of early. And boy, it's been a real variety of side effects that have come along from that. So I'm going to talk a little post-vaccine because of my massage therapy. I think I have seen a lot of folks come through my doors, and all kinds of stuff has surfaced. What I would suggest and recommend to prepare for it based on what I've seen, which might look like clogs under the armpits so bad that the woman can't put her arm down for days. You know, I've had folks come to me like, I am in serious pain. This went in my arm. This obviously has gotten lodged here. My body's having this immune response to try and attack it or trap it. That's really what our warrior lymph, that's why we call these the warrior lymph. And that's where you'll first often start to feel swollen when a cold is coming on. Your body has tried to swell and make this sort of bubble around this infection or this microbe, whatever it is that's come in. And so, you know, same kind of thing. She was so swollen under the armpit. So that's where this lymphatic work is so crucial. You know, I've heard, you know, you want to go in there and even as you've just gotten the shot, moving that arm around, you know, you want to protect it and you want to hold it still. Well, actually, you want that stuff to travel through the system. You maybe want to go in afterwards. What does it look like to help this stuff move through in a sauna? Maybe you're doing some kind of detox. I'm a big fan of enemas and colonics. If any client comes to me and they're feeling joint pain, go home tonight and do an enema. That joint pain will be gone instantly. I mean, I cannot tell you how much we hold in the tissue, both in the digestive tract, urinary tract, in the lymphatic, in the, you know, all kinds of cells throughout the whole body. We're having to process and break stuff down and try to move it through and assimilate it. So I would just say to be active beforehand, physically opening, like we started this call talking about those lymphatic channels and opening these drains. You want to make sure that your body is in the most fluid state that it can be so that this can travel through and do what it's meant to do and disperse evenly through the body and maybe even work its way out of the body. And so I'm a big proponent of sweating and the sauna. Just any way that you can move. How would it be to go for a swim? Try to swim hard enough that you break a sweat. I mean, that's good work right there. And that would be moving the arm and moving the body fluidly the day or two afterwards, if you're able to. Yeah, the hydration, doing all the electrolytes.
Like anything that reduces inflammation in the body. And so that's because that's what the creation of the spike protein will create, a little inflammatory response. And so, you know, there's herbs that you can, you know, I think turmeric again is one of these anti-inflammatory herbs. The aloe vera is cooling. I think definitely trying to move that around through your lymphatics so the immune system can do whatever it is supposed to do with the new vaccines. But I think the best thing to do, and this is just whether you're vaccinated or not, is to maintain your health to the best of your ability. I mean, the good immunity, you know, what's the appropriate weight for you? What's your, you know, appropriate level of activity? What's your diet? Are you getting enough sleep? I think stress is the biggest thing here. And so I think, can you get a pranayama breathing practice together that puts you into a parasympathetic state. So you're not anxious about, am I going to get exposed to this virus? Because I think that's the worst
Good
thing, to
point.
be anxious and then be exposed, because now you're freaking out. I've been exposed, and you're, running all over. Then they got people running all over town for a test. And it's like, stay home. You know what I mean? How is this not like going to work sick? And so it's just, there's so many things that are going wrong, but I think we have our intuition and our, this thing about what Dee says about sleeping and, not moving around a lot and trying to stay calm and maintain our health and our immunity. That's our best, and stay connected to people who can support you in your health. I think that's also,
Yes.
and people who can keep you, in Ayurveda, it's called sattva, it's this kind of peaceful, balanced state, and that's opposed to like tamas, which is inertia and going down, and things are getting really depressing, or, rajas, where it's like everything's moving around and it's a whirlwind. You really kind of want to keep a baseline that's not like riding this wave of up and down. You want to stay kind of steady as you can. And I think that's powerful. So that's it. I mean, like, that's what they're not telling people to do, is like, oh, maybe we should all start being healthy all of a sudden. That's not part of the plan.
It's part of our plan.
It is part of our plan. And it's like, that's why, and I think that's why people have questions. What should I do? And it's like, oh, maybe it's the things we always should have been doing. It's like,
Yeah. Well, just, taking that point and thinking how if I were to go and get the shot, I would maybe take the day off afterwards, that I wouldn't plan a bunch of stuff for myself, even later in that day, that you could just go home and cocoon, or you could go for a really peaceful walk, or, a little float in your pool, or whatever that looks like. That's going to just kind of keeping that peace. I think that's a really important part about the nervous system. That's a lot of where our health issues come from, is stress.
Yeah, definitely. And feel good about whatever your decisions are, and, whoever you're choosing to hang out with. And I think that's going to make it less stressful. And when we feel positive, I don't want to be too woo about it, but it is true. Like, when we're negative, we're prone to getting sick. And when we're a little more positive, we're going to be prone to being able to fight that, whatever it is. And so I think, like, so much of what's going on with the virus is dealing with viral replication right as you're exposed. It's like, do you have an immune system that will shut it down fast? And it's like, people who are stressed out and worried and pre-diabetic or perimenopausal and suffering, it's gonna be a little rougher on them than it is on somebody who's feeling okay about themselves. And it doesn't mean people who are feeling okay. I've got some crazy flus.
I've heard every story under the sun.
Right, you're not gonna feel good.
Don't even want to get into it. Everybody's been handling it differently. We have to just hold space for that. And if anybody has a health concern, they're welcome to come forward. They can get a hold of either Tara or I. I'm on Instagram, Simone Heals. And Tara, what's your email?
greentaracaffrey@gmail.com.
Perfect. If you had a further question, you're welcome to hit us up.
But randoms find me. So if you look up
Tara Caffrey, a wealth of knowledge. We've been seeing clients together lately. We're building a Panchakarma center together. So it's really a beautiful thing to be able to be on this journey and have support with other wonderful practitioners that are equally knowledgeable and often bring a different perspective. So it's really been a blessing to get to do this and to learn about this course of study.
I think that's fantastic that you two are building a Panchakarma center. I can't think of a better duo, especially with your cooking background, Tara. Oh my God.
Yes. Cooking background. Yeah.
She's an incredible kitchen witch. I'm super grateful. She's hipped me to so many things. One Ayurvedic herb we love to use a lot is dasha mula. It's actually not one herb. It's a combination of
10 roots.
10 different roots. And when they're cut like this, I don't know if you can see through the package, these are the actual roots that have been chopped up. So it's just powerful and potent medicine and grounding. You think of like, okay, what part of the plant am I using? I'm using these deep roots. I'm doing something for myself that's going to assist in grounding me, if nothing else, right? We're looking at where the plant actually comes from and what properties it's going to carry. And she gave me the idea with one of her Ayurvedic learnings in a different course that you can use the Dasha Mula in an enema with milk and ghee. And I've always thought of enemas just being water. Maybe a coffee enema was the first one I heard of, or a lemon enema. And then I heard of a, coriander drops, and how about seaweed inside of it? How nourishing that could be, or aloe. I've tried the range. And actually doing a nourishing enema with the Dasha Mula and then some milk and or ghee mixed in is just so wonderful.
It changed the arthritis in my hand in a big way. And it's also one of these things where you can see like this Ayurvedic concept of the channels in your body and how that works. You know what I mean? Sort of like how they call them shrota. I won't go into it, but it's just sort of like you can see a concept work on you by the
They're
way
all
the
feeding
herbs
each other in layers.
And so it is true, like this thing that's, down in my root is, having an effect out in my hands. And so it's very, Ayurveda is very powerful. And there are all kinds of nourishing, oily enemas that you can make a mess.
Or come and get us to do it for you.
Help. We're gonna do a video, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to make a video.
An educational video.
Coming soon. Or is there any last question, Lovey? Did we get through them all?
We're actually running out of time
We're out of time.
Yeah. I love that you are talking about Dasha Mula and the other herbs coming, I see, from Banyan, which you probably know. We just started teaming up with them as an affiliate, and Deanna's writing blogs for them,
Oh, cool.
which is exciting. So I'm going to put a link in the description where you can get 10% off Banyan products. So you can pick up some Dasha Mula and Chyavanprash and all the other stuff. It reminded me of how I use
Amalaki, they're in there.
I ordered
all
their
that
facial oil, their ear oil. All of my massage oils come from Banyan. They have a healthy hair oil that I swear by. I mean, I think I have a few bald clients that come to me just in the hopes that healthy hair oil is gonna resurrect something.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they're an amazing company. You may have seen last time when Deanna was hosting, she talked about how she was there when they started in her room. So it's really lovely. And then, as I mentioned, we've got a podcast of this. Follow us also on Instagram and Facebook. Deanna is now offering remote consultations that you can book yourself online, which is pretty exciting. I'd snap those up because she's getting booked out. So other than that, thank you so much, you two, for being here and lending your amazing expertise. What a twofer. This really has been amazing.
Such a pleasure, dear heart. Thank you for opening the space for us. And thank you, teacher, always for your knowledge and your wisdom and for your guidance and for trusting so deeply in me and helping me bring my gifts forward, because we're just sharing knowledge that was shared with us with a passion and a joy. And
this was a wonderful surprise for me.
Thanks. Last minute help.
This was great.
Call on your support.
Right.
They're there.
Thank you.
Love you all. Have a wonderful afternoon. All the blessings.